Just 5 months after tying the knot, Nat and Maria purchased a stunning home in Los Angeles, nestled in the prestigious neighborhood of Hancock Park, a place once dominated by old-money white elites. But this story isn't just about real estate. It's about the rise, the glory, and the haunting fall. Step into the grand foyer of Neverland's main house, where Michael Jackson once welcomed his inner circle with open arms. These walls were once alive with the rhythm of soul music, bursts of laughter, and parties that lasted till sunrise. But today, only the wind dares to speak, whistling through shattered windows like cries from the past. The walls, now cloaked in mold and silence, tell a very different story. You won't believe it. 21 mansions that were once the pride of black excellence in Hollywood now lie forgotten and decaying. These weren't just homes. They were sanctuaries where legends lived, loved, and made history. But after their deaths, everything was left to rot. No caretakers, no respect, just echoes of greatness lost to time. Why were these icons abandoned so cruelly? And what really happened behind those locked doors? Don't skip this video, because what you're about to witness isn't just a tour of forgotten homes. It's a journey into the untold tragedies that still haunt the legacy of Black Hollywood. So grab someone to watch with and brace yourself. The deeper you go, the darker it gets. Nat King Cole, the rise, the collapse, and the haunted remains of a legend. He was the velvet voice of a generation, the working-class prodigy who rose to unimaginable heights. With soul-stirring vocals and masterful piano hands, Nat King Cole didn't just entertain America, he broke its barriers. As the first black man to host his own national TV show, he redefined what was possible in entertainment. In 1956, he crowned his success with a lavish mansion in Hancock Park, a gleaming symbol of the American dream finally within reach. But just 6 years later, the dream began to unravel. In 1961, Cole was hit with a brutal diagnosis: lung cancer, the price of decades spent chain-smoking. He kept it hidden from the world, still showing up to the studio every day, recording in a curtained room where every note was wrung from lungs that could barely function. The music he once lived for became a lifeline, a final act of defiance. Each performance was delivered through gritted teeth and burning pain, but he never stopped. The grand home that once echoed with laughter and jazz slowly turned into a mausoleum. Cole insisted the curtains stay drawn. Sunlight made him dizzy. The house grew darker, colder, like a tomb trapping him between the fading light of fame and the creeping shadow of death. By February 1965, Nat King Cole was gone. But for his wife Maria, the nightmare was only beginning. Racist hate flooded in anonymous letters, venomous threats, curses directed at her children simply for existing in a wealthy white neighborhood. Alone, terrified, and without her husband's protection, Maria packed up the kids and vanished 2 weeks after his funeral. She didn't even sell the home, she just locked the doors and left everything behind. What followed was decay. Looters stripped the mansion bare, from Cole's legendary piano to priceless crystal chandeliers. The fountain dried up. Graffiti covered the walls. Weeds took over the lawn. What was once a beacon of black excellence now stood as a hollow monument to a dream turned nightmare. And then the whispers began. Neighbors swore they heard piano notes drifting through the air at 3 a.m., even though the power had long been cut. Some claimed to see figures moving past darkened windows, shadows in a house no one lived in. In 2001, a young musician moved in, hoping to draw inspiration from the legend's ghost. He lasted 3 months. In a final blog post, he wrote, "I've never been in a place so full of music, and yet so completely silent." Today, the mansion stands shuttered, cloaked in dust and silence, a haunted relic of a man who gave everything to his art, and a chilling reminder that even the brightest stars can vanish into darkness. Sam Cooke's haunted mansion and the chilling mystery behind a soul legend's death. Sam Cooke, more than just the father of soul, was a voice of revolution, blending heartbreak and hope into melodies that moved a nation. In the heat of the 1960s, while America grappled with civil unrest, his music became the heartbeat of a movement. But behind the spotlight, a storm was brewing. In 1963, Cooke moved into a sleek, 4,000 square foot mansion in Los Angeles. Floor-to-ceiling glass doors opened to a serene sun-drenched garden, his personal oasis. It was there he recorded "A Change Is Gonna Come," the anthem of hope that echoed through generations. But the peace didn't last. Beneath the glitz of music industry soirees and endless laughter, something sinister stirred. Sam noticed unmarked cars idling outside his gate, headlights off. He heard eerie noises creeping through the hallways at night. Paranoia crept in, not just through the walls, but into his very soul. He told friends and family he was being watched by the FBI for his civil rights work. They brushed it off. Until tragedy struck. On a cold December night in 1964, Sam Cooke was found dead, shot in a seedy Los Angeles motel. He was nearly naked. The woman who pulled the trigger? The motel manager. The case? Closed within days as justified. But the world wasn't buying it. Too many questions. Too many holes in the story. The media turned on him. They painted Sam not as a martyr, but as a man living a double life. Radio stations that once championed justice suddenly went quiet. His allies vanished. His widow, Barbara, overwhelmed by scandal and whispers, sold the mansion and disappeared into the shadows. The house became cursed, haunted by suspicion and sorrow. Its next owner, a rising entrepreneur, went bankrupt in under a year, caught in a Hollywood scam. The mansion was repossessed, left abandoned and decaying, as if the darkness inside had swallowed it whole. No one dared buy it, not because of the price, but because of the legend that refused to die. Speakers from the home studio were stolen. A photo of Cooke with Muhammad Ali vanished. The once lush garden withered. An ancient willow tree dropped dead, mid-spring. In 1982, a homeless man who sought shelter there ran out at midnight screaming, "I saw a man facing the wall, but when I spoke, he melted into the glass." Some believe Sam Cooke's final unreleased recording lies hidden in the mansion's basement. But no one's had the courage to check. Once a place of creation, the house is now a void, a black hole that devoured a soul icon's legacy. And the mystery of Sam Cooke's death still lingers, just like the eerie silence that surrounds the mansion he left behind. Otis Redding's mansion, a shrine to genius and grief. Otis Redding, the raw, aching voice of the American South, didn't just sing soul, he was soul. With classics like "Try a Little Tenderness" and "Respect," he poured every ounce of his spirit into each lyric, becoming a symbol of love, pain, and unshakable truth. But behind the music was a man quietly unraveling. In the mid-1960s, at the height of his fame, Otis retreated to a 5,000-square-foot wooden house in Macon, Georgia. It wasn't just his home, it was his sanctuary. There, he built a ground-floor studio lined with pine walls and wide windows that opened onto a quiet garden. Most mornings, you'd find him sitting out there, guitar in hand, chasing melodies on the breeze. Outside, the house glowed with calm. Inside, Otis was drowning. He worked himself into the ground, overseeing every deal, writing relentlessly, fighting fiercely for black artists' rights. Paranoia crept in. He trusted no one, not even those closest to him. Sleepless nights. Constant tension. The weight of it all wore him thin. Then came December 1967. He had just recorded a rough version of "Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay," his most haunting, prophetic work. 2 days later, tragedy struck. Otis's private plane crashed into the icy waters of Lake Monona, Wisconsin. His body was found. His beloved guitar was not. His wife, Zelma, collapsed with grief. The house, once alive with sound, turned cold overnight. The studio, left exactly as it was. His unfinished lyrics still resting on the desk. No one had the heart to touch a thing. By March 1968, Zelma walked away. She never returned. The house stood frozen in time, not a home, but a monument to sorrow. When asked why she never sold it, she simply said, "Otis is still there." Over the next 2 decades, the mansion fell apart. The roof caved. The wood rotted. Equipment rusted. Weeds swallowed the path to the door. A photo of Otis and his son, once vibrant in the living room, faded into ghostly outlines. Locals say strange things happen there, that every December, around the anniversary of his death, The lights in the studio flicker. Some swear they've heard whistling, the unmistakable tune of Dock of the Bay, even when no one is inside. In 1995, there were plans to turn the home into a memorial museum. But when producers stepped inside, something spooked them. Furniture cracked, ceilings peeled, walls seemed to groan. The studio, silent for decades, made eerie, clicking noises. A lone tape left on the machine hissed softly, like it was waiting to be played, or warning not to. They backed out quietly. Today, the Otis Redding Foundation still owns the house. But no one dares to live in it. What once was a place of soul-shaking music now holds only wind, mildew, and the lingering presence of a legend, a genius taken too soon, and a song that never got to say goodbye. James Brown's haunting death and the abandoned mansion that echoes his soul. James Brown, the godfather of soul, once lit America on fire with his electrifying voice, his untamed dance moves, and a spirit that refused to be broken. He wasn't just a music icon. He was the beating heart of black music, a towering figure every artist revered. But after Christmas night in 2006, that brilliance faded. James Brown died suddenly of heart failure, and with him, a kingdom crumbled, leaving behind a rotting mansion and a legacy shrouded in chaos and mystery. Back in 1972, at the height of his fame, Brown bought a lavish island estate, over 8,000 square feet of pure opulence. Black iron gates bore his name in bold letters. Inside, red carpets, white leather chairs, crystal chandeliers, bronze statues, and a triple-insulated recording studio where he'd scream out soul anthems at 2 a.m., shirtless, drenched in sweat, gripping the mic like a man possessed. But as the years wore on, darkness seeped in. Behind the glitz, Brown battled bipolar disorder and spiraled into heavy drug use. Some nights he'd lock himself inside the house with a gun, vanishing for days as the music blared, lights burned, and fear gripped the air. Then, suddenly, silence. After his death, his family descended into bitter war. 9 children and a woman claiming to be his wife, Tommy Ray, fought over everything. His estate, his shoes, even the very walls of his home. The mansion, once a palace, was left to rot. Windows smashed, rats infested the studio, and his prized Baldwin piano was secretly sold off to pay legal fees. The bronze statue in the foyer? Gone. Stolen, or maybe hidden by a family member too ashamed, or too greedy, to let go. By 2021, a home once worth $2 million was listed for just $350,000. Locals refused to go near it, unnerved by strange noises and a chilling aura that seemed to ooze from its walls. One buyer purchased it, then left it untouched, too spooked to move in after a single unsettling night. And still, the house remains. Silent. Abandoned. A ghost wrapped in the velvet of a forgotten legend. In the studio, scrawled in red paint across a cracked wall, someone wrote, "Papa's got a brand new bag." No one knows who did it. Some whisper it was James himself, his final message, etched in madness or memory. His former partner Zelma refused to sell the house, only offering a cryptic reason: Otis is still there. From the vibrant 1970s to the neglected 90s, the estate decayed fast. The roof caved in, the gear rusted, the entrance swallowed by weeds. A photo of Brown with his son, once proudly displayed in the living room, faded to a ghostly blur. Locals say every December, on the anniversary of his death, the studio lights flicker at midnight. Some swear they've heard the eerie whistle of Dock of the Bay floating through the air. But when they looked, the house was empty. In 1995, a production company tried turning the estate into a museum. They lasted a few days before abandoning the project. Inside, furniture was split and ceilings peeled. The only tape left in the studio hissed with static, like a voice trying to speak from beyond. Today, the Reading Foundation technically owns the house. But no one dares enter. What was once a stage for soul-shaking music now stands as a lifeless shrine to grief, madness, and songs that were never finished. Marvin Gaye's final scream in a silent mansion. He was the velvet voice of Motown. A soul legend whose songs, Sexual Healing, What's Going On, didn't just top charts, they touched hearts. But Marvin Gaye's final act didn't play out under a spotlight. It ended in blood, in silence, and in a house that swallowed his last scream. In Los Angeles's West Adams district stood his nearly 6,000 square foot mansion, a sanctuary where he sought peace after years of darkness. Each room echoed with hope, with healing, with the kind of silence only a man running from demons could crave. But fame faded, money vanished, and Marvin unraveled. Cocaine blurred his days. Paranoia haunted his nights. He trusted no one. He stopped singing. He claimed the CIA watched him, the FBI trapped him, and that unseen forces roamed the halls. By December 1983, broke and broken, Marvin moved back in with his parents. It wasn't a homecoming, it was a countdown. His father, a strict preacher, had been his tormentor since childhood. The air in that house buzzed with quiet hatred, waiting for a spark. On April 1, 1984, it came. A simple argument, over a lost letter, exploded. Marvin lashed out. His mother calmed him. But moments later, his father returned, holding the very gun Marvin once gave him. 2 shots rang out. One pierced Marvin's heart. He died in his mother's arms, one day before his 45th birthday. The family fled the home within a week. His mother never stepped foot in that room again. A year later, she sold the mansion and divorced the man who pulled the trigger. But Marvin never left. New owners came and went. None stayed. They spoke of icy air in summer, whispers in the night, flickering studio lights with no power. One even claimed to hear faint singing, Marvin's voice. By 2021, the house that once held million-dollar memories was worth just $350,000. A crumbling tomb of soul music's most tragic prince. The current owner? Too afraid to live there. One sleepless night was enough. Now the mansion sits frozen, a haunted time capsule. On the studio wall, someone painted in red, "Papa's got a brand new bag." No one knows who did it. Some say it was James Brown. Others whisper it was Marvin himself. Zelma, a family friend, refused to sell. Her reason? Otis is still there. From the 70s to the 90s, the house decayed. The roof leaked. Floors rotted. The studio, once alive with genius, grew cold and dust-choked. Weeds swallowed the path. A photo of Marvin and his father blurred into a ghostly smear. Every December, neighbors claim the lights still flicker at midnight. Some swear they hear the melody of Dock of the Bay whistled from inside. But the mansion remains locked. Empty. In 1995, producers planned a museum to honor Marvin's legacy. They left just as fast. The vibe? Too heavy. Too wrong. The walls cracked. Equipment clicked, despite being long dead. A single tape hissed static, like something unfinished, not meant to play. Today, the Reading Foundation owns the home. But no one dares go in. A place that once pulsed with world-shaking music now holds only wind, rot, and the lingering ache of a soul who died with too many songs still trapped inside. Etta James, the mansion of a queen and her final chord. Etta James wasn't just a singer, she was a storm. Her voice didn't just sing the blues, it commanded silence. Every note she hit told a story soaked in pain, power, and soul. She earned Grammys, respect, and a permanent place in music history. But in the end, all that remained was silence and a forgotten house. By 2006, after decades wrestling with addiction, prison, and illness, Etta retreated to a secluded 5,000 square foot mansion in Riverside, California. She didn't want fame anymore. She just wanted peace. But her body was failing. Heroin had ravaged her liver, hepatitis C followed, and then came leukemia. By 2008, she was paralyzed, confined to a wheelchair, her once thunderous voice reduced to a whisper. The mansion, once meant to be her refuge, turned into a haunting shell. Nurses came and went, often quitting after just one shift. Some claimed the piano played at night, even though no one touched it. The garden grew wild, weeds climbing the windows. Etta would sit and stare outside, waiting for family to visit. But no one ever came. On January 20, 2012, Etta James passed away in a coma. Her body lay untouched while her estranged husband and children launched a brutal legal battle over her estate. No funeral was planned. No farewell. The mansion was locked, left to rot. In 2016, reporters finally stepped inside. What they found was chilling, moldy floors, rusted furniture, fogged-over mirrors. The once legendary recording studio had been stripped bare. No sound remained, except for a portrait of Etta hanging on the wall, her eyes still sharp, still watching. It wasn't a house anymore. It was a tomb. Locals whispered of a new bag mysteriously hung on the studio wall. No one knows who left it. Some believe it was Etta's final mark, a sign she was still there. Her longtime housekeeper, Zelma, refused to sell the home, only saying, "Otis is still in there." From the 70s to the 90s, the house had been decaying slowly, leaking ceilings, rotting wood, rusted equipment. Photos blurred with age. Weeds swallowed the entrance. And every December, on the anniversary of Otis's death, people say the studio lights flicker at midnight. Some swear they've heard a ghostly whistle, the tune of Dock of the Bay. In 1995, producers attempted to turn the mansion into a memorial museum. But they left almost immediately. Something about the place didn't feel right. Ceilings cracked, walls splintered, and dead studio equipment made strange clicking noises. The last remaining tape hissed with static, like something not meant to be heard. Today, the Reading Foundation owns the property. But no one enters. The music has long faded. All that's left is dust, mold, and a silence that feels like it's still listening. Waiting. Because this isn't just a forgotten mansion. It's the resting place of a queen, and the ghost of a song never finished. Barry White's mansion, silenced after losing its golden voice. Barry White, the velvet-voiced maestro of soul and seduction, once reigned as the symbol of romance. With his deep, honey-drenched vocals, he sold over 100 million records, won multiple Grammys, and became a living legend. But behind the gold records and the global fame lay a heartbreaking final act, one written in silence. His 7,000-square-foot Beverly Hills mansion was more than just a home. It was his sanctuary. A place where melodies flowed from a private studio, laughter echoed by the pool, and love simmered in a kitchen filled with the aroma of Barry's cooking and the sound of his own hits. But in 2002, everything stopped. A massive stroke paralyzed half of Barry's body and robbed him of his most powerful gift, his voice. Confined to a bed on the second floor, Barry White, once the voice of love, could barely whisper. No stage, no spotlight, just silence. By his side, his young wife, Catherine, stayed, watching helplessly as the man the world adored slowly faded away. Barry passed in July 2003. But death was only the beginning. With no will left behind, chaos erupted. Children from 2 previous marriages took Catherine to court, accusing her of stealing his legacy. What followed wasn't mourning, it was a war. Meanwhile, the mansion fell into decay. Locked, abandoned, and stripped of life, it stood still until a storm shattered its glass roof, flooding the floors and soaking the memories. The once vibrant home rotted from the inside out. In 2010, an investor bought the estate, hoping to transform it into a luxury retreat, but backed out months later, claiming the place had bad energy. Teenagers who dared sneak inside told stories of eerie sounds, like a bass drop thundering from nowhere, chasing them out in terror. Today, the house remains a haunted shell, tied forever to Barry White's name, but spoken of only in whispers. Isaac Hayes, a soul shattered in silence. He was more than a musician. Isaac Hayes was a force. The deep, unmistakable voice behind Theme from Shaft, an Oscar winner, a soul icon who helped define the sound and spirit of Black America. On stage, he was untouchable. But behind the gates of his once grand 6,000-square-foot mansion in Memphis, his life was quietly unraveling. In his final years, the legend battled high blood pressure, diabetes, and a devastating stroke in 2006 that left half his body paralyzed. Doctors begged him to rest. But Isaac couldn't stay away from the music. Every night, he'd descend into his basement studio, a cold, haunted space no one else dared enter. He'd play, record, whisper to the walls. And then, he'd erase it all. No one ever heard those songs. Whatever he was creating died in that silence, with only the soundproofed moldy walls left as witnesses. Then, on August 10, 2008, it all stopped. His wife found him collapsed on a treadmill, trying to claw back strength after the stroke. No last words. No grand farewell. Just silence. The man who gave soul its voice died in the very house that once echoed with his genius. But the tragedy didn't end there. What he left behind wasn't just a musical legacy, it was a tangled mess of unpaid bills and heartbreak. The home, once alive with rhythm and brilliance, fell into decay. By 2010, his wife and children abandoned it, unable to bear the weight. The pool turned to sludge. Lights flickered and died. Paint peeled from the walls. The mansion didn't just rot, it mourned. Neighbors say they still hear piano notes in the dead of night. Faint. Unfinished. Like Isaac's spirit is still trying to finish one last song. But no one dares go in. The sorrow hangs too heavy. The brilliance too broken. A legend's shadow, left to echo through a house that became his tomb. Don Cornelius, the Soul Train legend who died alone in a haunted mansion. He was the mastermind behind Soul Train, the man who gave a stage to black excellence and changed music history forever. Don Cornelius wasn't just a host, he was a cultural icon, a beacon of style, pride, and power. But behind the bright lights and iconic dance lines was a darkness few ever saw, a quiet descent into loneliness that ended in tragedy. After selling Soul Train in 2008, Don retreated to a lavish 6,000-square-foot mansion on Mulholland Drive, a home once alive with star-studded parties and legendary music sessions. But the music faded, the laughter disappeared, and Don slowly shut the world out. By 2010, he was battling the return of crippling headaches from a past brain surgery. Friends said he would pace the halls at night or sit for hours in front of a blank TV screen. His bedroom windows were covered in foil, the room always pitch black, suffocating. He barely slept. He barely spoke. Then, on February 1, 2012, just before sunrise, Don sent a short message to his son. Minutes later, a single gunshot rang out. Police arrived to the haunting sound of jazz echoing through the halls. Don was found on his bed, eyes open, hand on his chest. The man who once lit up every room had died alone, in silence, in sorrow. A draft of his unfinished memoir lay torn across his study, raw pages filled with pain, loneliness, and unhealed wounds. After his death, the mansion decayed. Grass overtook the yard. The pool turned black. Neighbors whispered of jazz drifting out at midnight, notes that stopped mid-riff. A year later, a homeless man who broke in fled screaming before sunrise. The studio where Don once mixed music until dawn now sits cold, empty. Except every February, when the lights flicker for no reason and dogs howl at the gate. Some say Don never left. Not to haunt, but because his soul never found peace. Richard Pryor's Cursed Mansion, the haunted laughter of a comedy legend. Richard Pryor wasn't just a comedian, he was a force of nature. The undisputed king of black comedy, Pryor turned personal pain into punchlines, making millions laugh while he quietly unraveled inside. But behind the curtain, away from the roaring applause, stood a mansion in Northridge, 9,000 square feet of hidden agony. That house wasn't just a home. It was a prison. By the late 1980s, multiple sclerosis had begun its cruel assault. First his legs, then his voice. Pryor was slowly stripped of his freedom. Bound to a wheelchair, barely able to speak, he was cared for only by his reconciled ex-wife Jennifer Lee and a team of nurses. But even sleep wasn't an escape. He relied on morphine just to get through the night. And then there was the fire. In 1980, in a cocaine-fueled breakdown, Pryor lit himself ablaze, half his body scorched. From that moment on, he was haunted. The room where it happened was locked forever. No one dared go inside. Pryor placed a black shaman statue outside the door, murmuring, "It keeps the fire from coming back." But nothing could hold back the ghosts in his mind. The mansion turned into a nightmare, shadows of the past, hallucinations, bursts of uncontrollable rage. He changed his will constantly, triggering chaos among his family. Even Jennifer, overwhelmed, filed for divorce. But in the end, she came back. Some whispered she returned for money. She said she just didn't want him to die alone. When Pryor passed on December 10, 2005, the real horror began. 6 children, multiple ex-wives, and Jennifer tore each other apart over the inheritance. The mansion was quickly sold, with plans to turn it into a Richard Pryor museum. But those plans died fast. Workers quit after experiencing strange phenomena: flickering lights, TVs turning on by themselves before exploding, and one swore he saw Pryor's old wheelchair slowly roll toward a stack of dusty VHS tapes. Even the new owner admitted feeling chilled to the bone every time he stepped inside. Now, the mansion sits empty, overgrown, forgotten, a cursed monument to genius and grief. Locals say at midnight, if you listen closely, you can still hear it, faint, ghostly laughter echoing through the halls. But no one's brave enough to find the source. Because for Richard Pryor, laughter was power. It was survival. And not even death could silence it. Donna Summer, the silent mansion of the disco queen. She lit up the world with Hot Stuff and Last Dance. A true queen of disco whose voice once echoed across every nightclub and radio station in America. But when the music stopped, Donna Summer's final years unfolded in haunting silence. Tucked away in a sprawling 6,500 square foot mansion in Naples, Florida, Donna lived out her last days behind tightly drawn curtains and still waters. The house that once symbolized glamour and life now felt frozen in time. Rooms untouched, the pool untouched, the air heavy with loss. In 2009, Donna was diagnosed with lung cancer. Doctors believed it stemmed from toxic dust she inhaled after the September 11th attacks. The illness spread quickly. Her radiant energy faded, and the home she once filled with laughter and music turned into a vault of pain, memories, and sorrow. She passed away quietly there in 2012. Her family, devastated, left the house behind, unable to face the echoes of her presence. A close friend once shared that Donna believed the house was no place for the living, whispering, "No one should stay, the sounds at night would drive anyone insane." Were they just the hallucinations of a woman near the end, or something else? To this day, neighbors sometimes claim they see a shadowy figure behind the curtains, watching. A woman's silhouette, still facing the dry, abandoned pool. Waiting for one last dance. Bernie Mac, the mansion where laughter died. Once, it was a palace of joy, a 7,000 square foot mansion in Chicago where laughter echoed through every hallway. Bernie Mac, the comedy giant beloved for The Bernie Mac Show and his unforgettable film roles, lived here at the height of his fame. With a private movie theater, a full basketball court, and dazzling decor, his home was a monument to success. The lights never dimmed, on stage or off. But behind the brilliance was a darkness few ever saw. In 2006, sarcoidosis quietly began to steal his breath, attacking his lungs in silence. Bernie kept performing, delivering laughs while privately battling pain. The world never knew how much it hurt. By July 2008, his condition worsened. He was rushed to the hospital with pneumonia. Just weeks later, on August 9th, Bernie Mac was gone. His mansion? It became a ghost. His family couldn't bear to stay. The place that once pulsed with life became a frozen shell of memories too painful to revisit. Vandals broke in. Dust smothered the velvet theater seats. The basketball court cracked under neglect. A caretaker once claimed he still heard laughter echoing through the halls, but after he passed away, no one stepped forward to replace him. Today, the mansion stands in eerie silence, a monument not to wealth or fame, but to a legend whose laugh once filled it, and whose absence now haunts every creaking window. Teddy Pendergrass, a mansion of broken memories and an unfinished song. Teddy Pendergrass, an icon of soul, a voice that melted hearts with classics like Close the Door and Turn Off the Lights, once lived in a mansion that echoed with music, laughter, and the glow of stardom. But behind that velvet voice was a life unraveling in silence. His 5,500 square foot Philadelphia estate, once the scene of glamorous parties and soulful rehearsals, had grown eerily still by 2009. Teddy lay in a hospital bed, battling complications from cancer surgery. Back home, unfinished tracks collected dust on his desk, the pool stood empty, and the rooms that once roared with life now whispered only ghosts. In January 2010, Teddy drew his final breath. And almost as if the light left with him, so did everything else. His wife disappeared into the night after the funeral, taking what she could carry. What followed wasn't mourning, but madness. The mansion was locked up, the family torn apart by inheritance wars. Today, the house stands in ruins, a decaying monument to a legend lost. Moss crawls across the walls, the once stunning glass ceiling shattered. Rain leaks onto warped wooden floors, electrical systems fried. And in the middle of it all sits a single moldy sofa, where Teddy once sat, listening to the echoes of a golden past, and the song he never got to finish. Rick James. From funk royalty to a forgotten mansion of ghosts. In the glittering heart of Los Angeles, the funk king fell. Rick James, the man who made the world move with Super Freak, whose electrifying voice and outrageous style lit up every stage, once ruled a 6,000-square-foot mansion where the party never stopped. But after the music faded, that same house became a cold, silent tomb. In 2004, Rick collapsed from heart failure in a crimson velvet bedroom. No one was there. His body lay untouched for 12 hours before anyone even noticed. The final curtain had fallen, and the funk was gone. After his funeral, family feuds over his fortune left the mansion abandoned. Within a year, it crumbled. The once glamorous pool dried into a garbage pit. Velvet chairs molded and decayed. Rats chewed through speaker wires. Even the DJ booth, once the heartbeat of wild nights, stood buried in dust. Then came the storms. Rain poured through broken windows, flooding the floors and ripping holes into what was left. In 2008, a thrill seeker broke into live-stream ghost rumors. He didn't last long, running out midstream, swearing he smelled smoke and heard eerie laughter echoing through the empty halls. Today, Rick's photo still hangs on the wall, flashing that iconic grin. But the champagne is long gone. No one dances there anymore. The funk dreams that once shook the mansion's walls have gone forever silent. Whitney Houston, the queen who fell in a crumbling castle. She once reigned supreme. Whitney Houston, the golden voice of a generation, a pop icon who soared to unimaginable heights. Grammys, platinum records, sold-out arenas, her legacy was etched in brilliance. But behind the dazzling spotlight was a haunting descent into addiction, heartbreak, and quiet devastation. Her once luxurious Mendham mansion, a place she called home, became a haunting monument to that downfall. In 2006, the bank foreclosed on the property. What was found inside shocked even the most jaded eyes. The indoor pool? Bone dry and filled with debris. Her private studio? Abandoned, wires dangling like forgotten dreams. Liquor bottles half full, shattered glass across the floor, and what looked like dried blood staining the carpet. No one could say how long it had been there. The walls were streaked with mold. The heater was broken. Light bulbs hung dim or dead. The house was frozen in time, steeped in sadness. After Whitney's tragic death, the mansion went up for sale. But something strange happened. Potential buyers claimed they heard singing from the second floor. Every time, the house was empty. Still, the price plummeted. Not because of ghosts, but because of something far heavier, grief. That mansion wasn't just a house. It was a broken crown. A silent witness to the fall of a queen. The abandoned mansion of Heavy D, a legend's lonely farewell. Once alive with music and laughter, Heavy D's 4,500-square-foot Beverly Hills mansion now stands as a haunting monument to fame's cold aftermath. In the 90s, he was a rap icon. His joyful energy, booming presence, and hit tracks lit up the charts. But behind the scenes, his final chapter was tragically silent. In November 2011, Heavy D died suddenly from a blood clot shortly after a long flight. Security footage later revealed his last moments, collapsing at the front door, hands stretched toward the knob, eyes locked in a desperate stare. He fought for life until the very end, alone. In the weeks leading up to his death, the mansion's lights glowed deep into the night. Afterward, the silence was deafening. Mail stacked high, newspapers soaked in rain, and no footsteps ever crossed the threshold again. Even his silver-plated microphone, a symbol of his powerful voice, was left behind, untouched and forgotten. By 2014, a group of film students attempted to shoot a horror project inside the house. They left after just 2 nights, shaken and unwilling to explain why. What was once a haven of Hollywood glamour now stands frozen in time, a chilling reminder that in this industry, even legends can vanish without a sound, leaving behind only echoes. Michael Jackson's Neverland, a grand dream that crumbled into silence. Michael Jackson, the undisputed king of pop, mesmerized the world with his moonwalk, Thriller, and record-shattering music. But behind the spotlight, his personal world was a strange and haunting contrast. In 1988, he poured $17 million into a 2,700-acre plot in California to create Neverland, a whimsical paradise built not just for children, but for the child within himself. With a private zoo, movie theater, train rides, and a glowing Ferris wheel, Neverland pulsed with music and magic around the clock. But the dream began to fracture. After the devastating 2003 child abuse scandal, authorities raided the property. Michael never stepped foot there again. The animals were relocated before they starved, fences were raised, the rides froze in time, and the vibrant paths became tangled with overgrowth. In 2009, Jackson died alone in a rented mansion, the victim of a sedative overdose. His final dream, the This Is It tour, never saw the stage. Meanwhile, Neverland continued to rot. Its once grand 20-room mansion fell into disrepair. Roofs leaked, floors cracked, and weather-worn bronze statues stood like forgotten ghosts. For over a decade, no one would buy it. Then in 2020, billionaire Ron Burkle quietly purchased the estate in honor of a friend. But the gates remain locked. Locals whisper that at midnight, lights flicker from the abandoned rides. Sometimes, music plays, just for a moment, then fades into silence. What was once a land of laughter and wonder is now a ghostly echo of a man's broken dream. Prince, utter loneliness inside the Purple Palace. He was a musical genius, a fashion rebel, and a mystery wrapped in velvet and lace. Prince didn't just live, he performed life like it was one long, enigmatic concert. But behind the fame and flamboyance was a man completely alone in a world of his own making. In 1987, he poured over $10 million into building his sanctuary, Paisley Park, a sprawling, purple palace in Minnesota. It wasn't just a home. It was a fortress of solitude. No doorbell, no visitors, no schedule, just music and silence. Inside those walls, Prince drifted like a ghost, creating, playing, existing in the shadows. Most of his life unfolded at night, behind closed doors, where only the echoes of his genius kept him company. Then came the tragic morning of April 2016. Prince was found lifeless in the elevator. Cause of death, a fentanyl overdose. No note, no goodbye, just silence. The same kind that filled his final years. After his passing, Paisley Park went dark, the lights dimmed, the music stopped. For years, it remained untouched, as if the building itself was mourning. Now, it stands as a museum, a shrine to the artist who gave us so much yet kept so much hidden. Step inside today and you'll still feel it, the haunting presence of a man who gave everything to the world, except his loneliness. Phyllis Hyman, a lonely goodbye among the New York skies. Perched high above Central Park in a stunning Manhattan penthouse, the voice of Phyllis Hyman once soared as effortlessly as the skyline itself. She was a jazz and soul icon, graced with Grammy nominations, collaborations with legends, and a presence that captivated millions. But behind the spotlight and the applause was a silence few ever knew, a silence that eventually consumed her. By the late 1980s, Phyllis was living alone in a sprawling 4,000-square-foot apartment, a palace turned prison. By day, she was a star. By night, a soul battling demons too heavy to bear. Depression wrapped itself around her like a second skin. Booze and pills became her nightly lullabies. The home that once echoed with rehearsals and laughter fell into eerie stillness, broken only by her voice drifting through the walls in the dead of night. For nearly a year before her passing, she vanished from the world. No shows, no visitors, no calls returned. Just darkness, isolation, and music. Then came June 30th, 1995, just 3 days before her birthday. Phyllis took a fatal dose of sleeping pills, turned out the lights, and laid down in her bed one final time. The apartment has remained largely untouched ever since. Some say her spirit still lingers, that the pain and sorrow she carried never truly left. To this day, her former home stands as a haunting monument in the heart of New York, a ghostly reminder of a brilliant light dimmed far too soon. Tupac Shakur, a young death and the California mansion that was never a home. Tupac Shakur wasn't just a rapper, he was a revolution in motion. A voice for the voiceless. His lyrics weren't just music, they were pain, poetry, and protest rolled into one. After his release from prison in 1995, Tupac moved into a secluded mansion in Woodland Hills, California, hoping to find peace and start a new chapter. But what he found instead was a haunting silence. The house had it all: panoramic views, a private studio, even a glistening pool. But inside, it was cold, empty. The walls echoed with restless nights, quiet paranoia, and the weight of something unshakable. It was there that Tupac poured his soul into some of his final tracks, often writing and smoking alone in the dark, slowly retreating into himself. Then came that fateful night in Las Vegas. When the bullets fell, so did the dream. Back at the mansion, his girlfriend Kid Ada got the call in the kitchen and crumpled to the floor. After the funeral, she never came back. The memories were too sharp, too heavy. The house didn't last much longer either. It slipped into decay. His belongings disappeared. Graffiti claimed the walls. No one's ever dared to bring it back to life. Because some places don't just hold memories, they hold ghosts. And that house? That house still whispers Tupac's final days. The Notorious B.I.G., a legend's final vision in a haunted mansion. Before the world lost him, the Notorious B.I.G., Brooklyn's lyrical king and East Coast rap icon, was already feeling something dark creeping closer. With his gritty flow, razor-sharp lyrics, and unforgettable tracks, Biggie turned a troubled past into pure artistry, putting Brooklyn on the global music map. But in 1996, he tried to escape the chaos. Seeking peace, he moved into a sprawling 7,000-square-foot mansion in Fort Lee, New Jersey, far from Brooklyn's bullets, the tension with Tupac, and the street life he once knew. He wanted to be a father, a husband, an artist. But the house had other plans. The mansion, meant to be a refuge, quickly became something else entirely. At night, strange hums echoed from the basement. Shadows crept across windows when the family slept. Biggie stopped sleeping. He lost weight. He began whispering to himself over and over, "They're watching me, they want me dead." Sometimes, he'd stand completely still in the middle of the living room, staring into nothing, for hours. His family didn't understand what was happening, but Biggie knew. Deep down he felt it. And on March 9, 1997, that feeling came true. He was gunned down in Los Angeles, just after leaving a party. At that exact moment back in Fort Lee, a studio light in the mansion sparked, then blew out. Faith Evans fled the house shortly after. The once grand home, like his legacy, was left echoing with silence and mystery. We've just explored 21 chilling ruins, once majestic mansions that echoed with power, wealth, and untouchable fame. But they're nothing but eerie husks, frozen in time, haunting reminders that fame fades and death doesn't play favorites. Which of these forgotten estates gave you chills? What do you think really happened behind those sealed doors? Could the spirits of their former owners still be lurking in the shadows? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Because trust us, there are even more jaw-dropping, untold stories coming your way.